while. So I decided I really need to get back to like kind of the answering questions kind of videos that I used to do a while back, because I realized I haven't really, every time I say like, you know, if you've got questions or comments, put them in the comments below and I'll get to them, but I don't always get to them in a specific kind of way. So today I wanted to answer somebody's like specific set of questions to let y'all know that I am listening and I do try to answer your questions kind of in video format. So this is an anonymous group of questions that I got on my Tumblr, so I can't really attribute to anybody, but I'm going to read it out to you and then we'll strike them down one by one. The first question, is it hard to live in Korea without speaking Korean? Were you scared the first time you got there? Your first day of school? And how to communicate with your coworkers. Number one, is it hard to live in Korea without speaking Korean? This I feel like needs to be a video in and of itself, like how to survive when you don't speak Korean in Korea. But the short answer is no, not even remotely, really. Like it's actually very easy. And I literally got to Korea without having, I couldn't read. I was absolutely oblivious to everything. I'd never ridden on a subway before. There's actually a lot of English around Korea, especially near Seoul, which is where I'm at. I'm in Anyang, and there's a lot of English going on. So it's actually not that difficult. You would be surprised how far you can get using gestures alone. When you're buying things, like I usually just have my headphones in my ears and I point to things. If the price is already written on it, even better. I don't really haggle much, but that's because I have a tendency to avoid confrontation, so I hate haggling. So I like don't really go to Dongdaemun very much because that's kind of like the haggling district. I'd rather just go to like, you know, Forever 21 where there's a sticker price and I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, short answer, not hard. Not hard at all. There are a ton of English speakers, especially near Seoul. So I definitely have a bunch of friends, foreigner and Korean. They just all speak English. And no, I don't speak Korean. So for those of y'all who keep messaging me and you ask me how I learned Korean, I haven't. I've been here for a year and a half. I know I should know more Korean than I do, but I don't. And so yeah, if you ask me how I learned Korean, you're gonna get a crap answer because I didn't. I do study, but even I find when I do try to study Korean, like at language exchanges and stuff, it's actually a little frustrating. If I go there to make friends, that's great. But if I go there to study Korean, it never works because there's always like 5 Koreans for one foreigner. And inevitably the conversation ends up back in English because their interest is not in studying Korean. English is their first interest. So when there's 5 to 1, what are you going to study? You're going to end up studying English. So, so yeah, you're fine. You're fine. Don't worry about it. Okay, second question. Were you scared the first time you got there? I was a cornucopia of emotions. I was excited, scared, worried, bubbly. I was overwhelmed. Like I think overwhelmed is probably the best way to describe it. I literally, the first few days, I just walked around with like this giant doe-eyed stare at everything. I mean, it was literally the first time I'd ever even left the country. And of course I went to leave the country for a year in a country where I don't speak their language or can read their writing. Some people would call me a little eccentric that way, but a lot of people do it, and Korea is getting more and more foreigner friendly. So I made friends pretty quickly through language exchanges and stuff, and once I had friends, and I was also dating, and so I had some boyfriends kind of take me under their wing and take care of me those first few months while I kind of figured out how to deal with everything. My co-teacher was also wonderful. She kind of helped me set up my AR card, taught me how to use the subways, the buses, all of that. So I was never really, left completely on my own. And even if I was on my own, then I could, always go to a coffee shop and use their internet. Because I don't know if y'all watched my first videos, but I actually didn't have internet for like a month and a half. Maybe even longer than that. But once I got internet, things got a lot easier too. So I was scared, definitely, but I think my excitement was definitely outweighed that, and I made friends, and once I made friends and knew people, it got a lot easier. Your first day of school, oh lordy. My first day of school, I had only substitute taught before, so my degree's in advertising, I'm not a teacher. So my first day of school, I was actually really lucky. For the first 2 weeks, I didn't have any classes, which is extremely lucky because I didn't actually have any lesson plans ahead of time. And at my current school, my first day, I was teaching. So if I had come in at my current school last year, I would have been a lot more complicated because I would have like immediately hit the ground running, and it would have just been scary. My old school, I had 2 weeks to plan ahead, but I actually, looking back, think it was much more difficult working there. I still had a great time, like it was a great environment, co-teacher's wonderful, everything, but I worked at an English village and we had no book. And I definitely find that when you've got no book, things get a lot more complicated. I only saw my students maybe once a month, so there was really no building that I could do. I couldn't, I didn't teach them every week, so I couldn't really build on any one idea or thought, which was very frustrating. And to make things even more fun, I was supposed to, the way that it works is they send us the classes of about 30 students, and we have no Korean co-teachers, and we're supposed to split the students between 2 foreign teachers, and each of us goes into our respective rooms and teaches our lesson. The person who was supposed to be teaching alongside of me, however, decided to switch schools last minute. So there was no other foreign teacher in the English village, it was just me. And the classes and the students still had to get taught. So I ended up teaching twice as many students as I was supposed to be teaching for a good, almost a whole month. So I had about 35 students in a classroom with no Korean teacher and no book to follow for a month, and no real prior teaching experience other than a few substituting experiences. It was definitely a learning experience. My first lesson was a disaster. It was definitely too hard. I taught 4th grade, way too hard. I immediately had to go and change it the next day because I was going to teach 4th grade again. But I would definitely say over time I kind of learned what worked and what didn't work, and it got a lot easier as it went along. I am kind of a flexible person. I take stress fairly well. So I would say if you're like a really rigid person, it probably would have been your worst nightmare, probably. And it was definitely stressful, but I figured it out, and you learn, that's kind of how this job works. You just have to constantly use your students as guinea pigs, and then once you find something that does work, stick with it. Play that game that they love to death. Because that's going to be, if they love it, use it, definitely. How to communicate with your coworkers. Well, obviously my co-teachers speak English, so I can communicate with them by speaking English. Coworkers in general, though, gestures. Yeah. Gestures, or my co-teacher will be with me and she'll translate for me, usually. I might try and have like a tiny bit of Korean conversations with them, but like I said, my Korean's really not up to par, especially not conversational. So for the most part, I kind of subsist on smiles and nods, and I'm always friendly. I always say hello when I come in, absolutely, or when I see them in the lunchroom, like the teacher lunchroom, I always say hi, say hello when I walk in, and try to be friendly and smile as much as I can, but that's really all that I can do. So yeah, that's do what you can, basically. So I don't really have conversations with the non-English speaking co-workers that I have. So yeah, those are the questions, answered to the best of my ability. If y'all have any more questions for me you want to answer, put them in the comments below. And y'all are awesome and fabulous and wonderful. And